Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody out there? Thank you for joining us today. This is ZENcast. Been a couple weeks and collected a few things for you. Boy, a lot can change in a couple weeks, huh? Welcome, Don. Glad to have you. And others that are out there that have responded in chat. And let me get my chat working here. So just wanted to say I hope you guys are all safe through some of this chaos and things going around the nation, and around the world, even with this COVID pandemic. Stay safe. So today we have some ZCM policies we're going to talk about. So I think when we leverage policies, it really brings out the life of ZENworks. Hello, Pascal. Glad you can make it. Thanks for joining us. I know I got an email from you shortly or earlier, so I'm glad you're able to make it. So we're gonna run through some policies today, but first we're gonna go ahead and do some channel housekeeping, just for those new people out there that haven't been chatting before or don't know how to this works. If you log into your YouTube using your YouTube account, you can chat and join in the conversation. An @ actually gives you a direct message to the person that put that out there. So if we wanted an example of that, we could move this over here. I have chat in another window, but not this one. So if I wanted to say hi back to Pascal, I can do @ and his name will come up. See that in the bottom? I'll go ahead and hit enter, and I could say hello. All right, and that'll actually highlight for him so he knows that somebody's talking directly to him and can actually chat directly. So be aware that that @ is there. I'll leave this out for just a minute so I can show you a few other housekeeping tips. @ command. So we're going to go through this slide presentation and you'll see these, not @ the exclamation points. And you as a person chatting can actually type those commands in, which are just abbreviations of a link or information. So for instance, if I wanted to show you best practices, BP, I'll type in exclamation BP, and it will come up with the best practices for 2020 ZENworks configuration management. All right, you'll see this throughout my slides, different commands. So be aware that that is there, and that you can actually, if instead of trying, I put the URL in the slides also so that those that are watching the recording can actually view them. But for those that are on live, you can actually get the URL directly, and then just click in chat on that link, and you're good to go. So be aware that that's there. Let's see, one other thing we're going to do is YouTube settings. All right. Make sure autoplay is not on, so if you disconnect, it won't go to some other YouTube video. It'll stay local. The quality, you might want to check for 720p60. Will give you the best quality. Sometimes if you have it on auto, it'll try and go in and out, and then you get some fuzziness and so forth. So be aware of that. It's on the gear that's at the bottom of your screen to make those settings. So those are the two that we found most useful for users using the YouTube. And then, of course, subscribe. Make sure you subscribe. If you happen to be logged in and we go live, you'll get a notification in your little subscription in your lower right-hand corner that, hey, ZENcast came live. So be aware that that's there. And again, afterwards, if you have questions that I didn't answer, if you're watching this recording and you wish to make comments or ask questions, please do so in the comments after the recording is published, and we'd be happy to follow up and get you those answers. Okay, so that's some of the housekeeping items. I'm going to move this back over. I put chat. You'll see in a little bit. I put chat back in my window in a little bit, and that way we can monitor so you guys can have conversations. You're welcome, Pascal. You make conversations during that. I'll see them, and it'll actually go on the live stream. the chat itself. For starters, conference and gathering news. Micro Focus Virtual Universe for North America was a success. So if you need to go to see what's going on there, to be honest, I don't know. I'm sure they have recordings, so you can go to those sessions and review them. I'd be surprised if they didn't. And then the TTP for Academia, it's coming up in July. It's going to be covering 2 weeks, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of each week. And then the first Friday and the last Monday, we're going to have some workshops. So go there if you want to double check if you're in academia and you want to go on to the TTP conference, please do so. And again, this Micro Focus ZENcast YouTube channel is the first and third Tuesdays of each month. And it's 9 o'clock Mountain Time. And this month we have actually 5 Tuesdays. So realize that lasts, it's not every other Tuesdays, it's just the first and third Tuesday. Okay? Be aware of that. I'll go ahead and do. So if we typed in subscribe, it should come up with those particular details. So and subscribe to the Micro Focus Support and Training channel, which we talked about just a minute ago, and that's on the YouTube site, so that you can get notifications and details when things go live. If you missed one on one Tuesday, you can always go back and see the recording. It'll be there for you to review. So thank you for joining us today on this ZENcast. I'm glad that we're able to be here today. We have a few product news. ZENworks Configuration Management Update 1. I said last time it's going to release any day. It will release any day. Real soon. They wanted to make sure there was some details they wanted to fit in final testing for us and on all the different products and different platforms. So it was extended a little bit longer on the back end before we release that. So be aware that that's coming out anytime. ZCM appliance patches are out right now, as well as the PRU for May obviously was the beginning of the month, and June should be coming out anytime now. So be aware of that. For the appliance patches, if you do not have an appliance, and you wish to see what that's about, and you're not sure what I'm talking about there, if we go to an appliance and you're registered and you go to online update, this is how you register. And of course, this one's active, it's registered, and you can see some security updates. This is for ZRS, this is for Service Desk. You can see online updates. And then I don't have my appliance up for ZCM. I have a Windows platform on that one. So you can see the security updates. Go ahead and do an update now or schedule it. Make sure you schedule a downtime, because most of this will tell you if it needs a restart. And for this one, there is a restart needed, except for the security patches. You can, if you do update now, you can say security patches only. Should be able, no, it's just going to install all the patches at this point. I did notice that this 8.1.2, even though you're at 8.1.2, it looks like they re-engineered that particular RPM, and so it appears here again. It's okay to just reinstall it, even though you're at 8.1.2. It does appear there, so don't be alarmed. That's you're already 8.1.2. That's okay. Go ahead and do that. If you do an update now here, again, you just do an install, and it tells you that you're going to be rebooting. Okay, so that's some of the activities as far as products. 2017, again, product upgrade. They're upgrading from SLUS 12 SP1 to SLUS 12 SP3. So if you have a 2017 appliance, there is an upgrade in there, and it will actually upgrade the OS. So be aware that that's there. So go to your online updates on 2017. If you have 2017 update 0, there's a TID out there to run the zipper. But otherwise, if you're on 2017 update 1, 2, 3, 4, or FRU1, it'll all go through the appliance product upgrade. ZENworks Service Desk, again, I just showed the ZSD security patches are out there, released just a couple weeks ago. Current version is 8.1.2. ZENworks Reporting Server, same thing I just showed you. The security patches are for Tomcat, so be aware that that security patches is necessary. There's a vulnerability, so if you do your security patches, it'll also security patch your Tomcat. All right. The current version for Reporting Server is 7.2, and then DB migration tools. We talked about this the last couple times, and again, for those new people, Sybase, MS SQL, and Oracle. If you want to get off those platforms in ZCM to go to PostgreSQL, there's a tool to do that. There are other platforms you can go from MS SQL to Oracle and those types of things in the documentation, but there's an actual tool that will migrate you off of Sybase, MS SQL, and Oracle to Postgres. And then ZSD also has a tool for MS SQL to Postgres. So be aware those are out there. Should help you out if you need that particular platform moved. Again, Micro Focus resources, COVID. There are some things Micro Focus is giving some tools to secure and connect your users through COVID. If we go ahead and do in chat, I'll do COVID. And you'll see that link. So if there are any other links you see that you're looking for, just go ahead and type that exclamation point in the name, and it will display that in chat for you to link on, so you don't have to type it all out. Again, newly designed Micro Focus support pages. We covered them last week. So go to microfocus.com. It has a similar look to how the Novell was a while back. So I'm excited about that because it's a little bit easier to get around. After the acquisitions, they finally tuned that into an easier way to get around. So that's there for you. Also the support page. And then Micro Focus Ideas Portal. It's fantastic. We're not ignoring you if we don't respond. I've had a few conversations with people on how to, that you'd like responses, at least, hey, I see it, or this is great, some types of response from us. So we're trying to work that in. Some of it takes a lot of detailed coding. So even though the votes may be high, that's great because we're planning on it, but it's when we plan for that major coding changes. But we do try to get those in. Those are great ideas. It helps you as a customer improve the product that you're using, and we really take those to heart. So please keep those idea portals coming in. It has been moved from the old ideas portal to Ideas Exchange, which is this particular link here. So again, if you want that, there's the link there. And it's out on the community. So they've really made a nice effort to combine the Micro Focus resources all in one area. And then, of course, the life cycle. If you need to know what your product life cycle is, you can address it there. Then education resources, on-demand training. On-demand is a purchased product, but there are out on the on-demand training free training. So just because you've heard that you have to purchase on-demand, there are free training sites out there. So be aware that there's ZCM, ZSD, and desktop containers, as well as the other products. I think there's some Filer, and there's First Looks and those types of things. And I'm working on a ZRS. So be aware those are there. Go to On Demand and check it out. There's some good information there, and we're going to come up to some of it in just a minute. Let's move on to knowledge base. Again, there's your knowledge base. Product forums are out there. Been getting a lot of great responses out there from the forums. The community working with each other, working with partners, working with us here at Support. Again, Micro Focus Support and Training YouTube channel. Subscribe to it because there's not only ZENcast, but there's ZENworks videos, there's service desk videos, there's desktop, there's product videos there. So ZENworks webinar recordings. They did a great job in combining the last 5 years into one list, and it goes back chronologically, and a lot of it still pertains. So for those ZRS, how to do a report or how to set it up, for instance, You can go to one that's a year old and it's still the same thing. It's just there's maybe have been some enhancements to the product. But all those recordings are very valuable. There's system zone maintenance and health checks. There's database migrations. There's products how-to things out there. And then, of course, if we go to the ZENworks documentation, you've most likely been there. So let's move on to what's new. So what's new? May 28th, we had the What's New in ZENworks 2020 Update 1. I hope you were able to see it. You'd be able to see it on the recording site. If not, and go to exclamation Q2 webinars. Oops, sorry. Wrong screen. And you'll see those recordings out there. And coming up next week, protecting data with ZENworks. So register there at that link there, or if you use the link that just went in chat, you can go there and register and be able to watch that. Obviously, you'll get a calendar update and so forth. So be aware that those are coming out. Great stuff coming in from engineering and support and partners. So let's move on. New training info, and this is what I wanted to get to. Go to On Demand. You can. Oliver Vornwald just updated the WinPE imaging in a 3-part series. It's updated for the recent ZENworks releases, and not just one languages, but 2. He did a champion job doing English and German for both of these parts. So if you, again, on-demand training has all this free stuff in it as well. So be sure to go out there, and especially if you're looking at imaging, and then also salvaging what you've been doing in Zen imaging. And if you're moving to WinPE, it really helps tie in so that you can actually salvage what, if you've wanted to go to WinPE and you're on Zen imaging, being able to see how that transition goes. It's fairly smooth. Upcoming soon, so I have some videos coming out soon, which is ZCM 2017 to ZCM 2020 upgrade, appliance and OS, as well as the ZCM 2020 Update 1 upgrade. So those will be formal on-demand training type videos out there. So be aware that those are there. Okay, any questions on training? Good stuff out there. We thank you for all the partners and support and engineers and developers that help put some of those on. It really, I think, helps the organization and you as a customer be able to see what's going on and how to do some things. Other product news, we talked about the Ideas portals. It has moved. Filer version 4.2 is released. And then there's also a newsletter out there called Engage. Register with it. I think you'd find it very informative, but it's not just for ZENworks, but ZENworks, it's a lot of Micro Focus products. Let me see if I can bring it up here. It's gonna do this, isn't it? Let me go here. Doop. Let's pull it up here. So the Engage comes out once a month, smartly done, and it'll have events. This is April's. I think May's just released. It has products, events, and so forth. But you'll be able to see different products in here. So very smartly done. And you can see that we have, like, the ZENcast is in here, configuring upgrades and so forth. Okay. So be aware that that's out there. Sign up for it, and that'll be great. Topics for today. So with all the different, with ZENcast coming out, and I request you guys to email me at paul.pedron@microfocus.com. That way, if there's any topics you're looking for, demonstrations, I've gotten a lot in. So I really appreciate what you're looking for. Again, with this ZENcast, we want to be able to shift as we go. We don't want it to be focused on one thing and then restricting you from asking questions about other things. So please use the chat. Let's move forward and answer your questions as well the best we can. But it prompted what topics and demonstrations are coming up in the future. And let me change my screen a little bit. And so the third Tuesday, we're going to do some more bundling. We did some a couple weeks ago, and bundling is just so huge. I guess the whole product is so huge. But I'm tying in a little bit of bundling, but it's integrating it with ZENworks Service Desk so that users can self-provision. All right? So being able to allow those enterprise apps like Adobe Reader, or you have a particular application that's out there that the enterprise uses and they don't have it on their desktop for some reason, they can easily go to what they call the ZENworks Service Desk store and actually provision themselves. Okay? So be aware that we're going to do that next week, which will tie into more bundling and more questions about bundling and how who has rights and how do we proceed with certain types of bundles and how do we get it from a network install to the desktop and those types of things. So those topics are always flowing. In July, we're going to be really looking at the best practices, zone design, sizing, and maintenance. I'm going to try and get somebody aboard to demo some mobile management and DMZ design. And of course, bundles and virtual applications. Again, there's the bundles again, but actually using some ZAV or desktop containers or Admin Studio to help with your bundling. Being able to turn off certain things in the bundle, like you don't want it to prompt with the README after install, or you want to make sure that it installs and then won't display if they're remote, because they won't be able to get to your network anyhow. So if there's particular applications that are connected, you need to be connected to the network, you can go ahead and you can set certain things up to be able to control those things. And that kind of helps your users out so that they don't, so that they get to the proper applications that they're used to. Let's go ahead. No questions on topic updates. And these are some of the future topic and demonstrations we've had. I mean, if we look at this, we got, somebody mentioned a couple weeks ago about duplicate GUIDs. Please email me on that. I think I didn't see it come through. So please email me if you have questions on that, or if you hadn't sent that out to me yet. Remember, GUIDs are object identifiers in the database for everything in ZENworks, right? So identifying what GUIDs are referring to, devices, bundles, contents, policies, the whole bit. Do that. But this list also came up with database maintenance, zone maintenance, monitoring stuff, database maintenance, server performance. So that's why in July we're going to do a little bit of that. We've also talked about mobile management, mobile DMZ. This is directly from some lists that you guys have given me. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew that we're trying to focus in on those things. And since we only have hour and a half, at max 2 hours, and that's every other week, this will help us, this cadence will help us determine whether we need more time to do this, if we need more sessions, ZENcasts, and so forth. Patch was out there quite a bit, so be aware, and then Endpoint. So we're going to do a little bit of policies today, all right? This week, provisioning through policies and troubleshooting. What policies can I deploy? What's the difference between ZCM and ZESM policies? And what are its limitations? Today's demonstration help your users become more productive, types of policies, locations versus location light. And we'll cover those topics and demonstrations in today's session. If there are questions, please put them in chat, log in chat and put them in there. Again, if you wish to chat to somebody, do an @ and start typing their name and it'll show up. It will show up only if you responded in chat, right? So Pascal, you responded in chat, so I was able to do @PA and your name came up. Same with Dawn. So please respond in chat a little bit and get some communication and messaging going, and we can see who's there and actually respond back. Exclamation point with commands. Feel free to use those. Let's do some lab talk. Are we ready? Any questions on covering what we just covered as far as links and so forth, chat and those types of things? Remember, there is up to a 2-minute delay. So if you type something in chat and when I respond, it'll typically be, if I see it right away, it'll typically be 2 minutes later. Okay. And that's by design. So moderators can help moderate the chat and the stream. So just be aware that that's there. I'm not ignoring you. But again, if I don't see it, please put it in again. I'd be happy to. I don't mind the nags. Okay. So we started off some of these ZENcasts with ZENworks management questions, right? What is the goal, the issue? How do we achieve our goal? What are the dependencies? Who's allowed? Time sensitive? Final results achieved. So these are things like you can put in change control, but a generic set of questions that really fit into ZENworks management in just about anything we do. And for instance, in this particular one, our goal is to enforce some policies, user device and policy enforcement, research. How do we achieve? We research, identify the policy to use. Obviously, we test and we document. Dependencies are zone and agent versions, so we really have to know what's in place in order to deploy. Because every version we're sending out new features, but if you're on an older agent, it obviously won't be able to know what that particular policy is if it's a feature in that policy. Who is allowed? Who is allowed? Is it a system related? Is it machine related? Is it user or device related? And then is it time sensitive or continual? Do you need to just put it out there and let people select it? Do you need to push it out there to make sure it's installed? Do you need to make it available like in the store or on the desktop? Or is it location based? When they take their laptop from their docking station at their desk and they work from home, they obviously can't get to some of the network devices, right? Unless they're VPN'd in, which is another policy, by the way. So you don't want to display some of those icons that they won't be able to get to unless you have a VPN policy and it sees that the VPN policy is in place, then you can leave that out there. So policies are really, really flexible. So I'm kind of nervous about this one because there's so much to policies, and I'm hoping my demo will work well. And because it is live. We're doing live. We're not doing recordings at this point. So the goal and issue is policy enforcement. Again, we talked about review the documentation for the various policy, define the issue, understand the consequences of mixing policies. One thing to remember, if you're on an Active Directory domain and you have GPO policies, you can also have ZENworks GPO policies or ZENworks policies that might compound your Active Directory. So making sure you have the right ones in place, which one supersedes which, right? Which one takes precedence over which? And that's what this slide at the bottom says. When to enforce it? Do you enforce it right away or do you wait for the refresh? Understand the consequences and understand the enforcement tree, right? Is it user? Is it device? Is it what are the limitations? Okay. So be aware of those things. Part of the step 2 process is conflict resolution for deploying a policy. So, and that's where you have user presence, device only, and user only. Okay. So we're going to cover a few of the policies right now, and I kind of just took snapshots from the policy, so it made it an easy list for us. We have policies under all. If you do policy new, you'll see all. Out there is a general policy called ZENworks End User Branding Policy. This is where you can brand your actual Zap window and what you can do within the Zap window, and what in saving favorites. Can you pin? Are you able to put things on the startup menu and so forth? So be aware that this one's here. This one's a good one to start with because it gives you a pretty quick response, and you can see what's happening when you go through this. And we'll cover one of these in our demo today. The next one is the Linux. We have a couple of policies in Linux: external services policy and a puppet policy. Okay, so you're aware that we have those. If you're doing some Linux devices, we have some of those policies out there to be able to do some of those services. Mobile, since we've integrated mobile device management into ZENworks, we have a few mobile policies, right? For the Android, for the iOS, and then general policies for like enrollment and stuff. So Android is enrollment and iTunes. We tap right into iTunes. And then the general mobile policies are compliance policies, device control policies, what they can do and what they can't do, email policies, setting it up so it's a workspace. If you have a corporate phone that goes out there, you can set it up so that the email is set in there for them. The enrollment policy and the security policies. Okay. Again, these get so detailed that looking at the definitions of these in the actual documentation really is warranted. And then finally, the iOS has an iOS iTunes app protection policy. Okay. So be aware that those are there. And finally, the last one is Windows. So Windows has Windows configuration policies, which comes with ZCM. You can also have Windows endpoint security policies and full disk encryption policies. Now, these two are either with the suite or an add-on, depending on what your purchases are. But if you're running Windows configuration management and you don't have a license for ZESM or full disk, you won't see these in the window. Okay. There are quite a few here, so I didn't put the boxes, I just spelt them out. So configuration management policies, browser bookmarks. Wonderful tool. If you haven't used it, I recommend it. At the previous employer that I had, we were using PeopleSoft, and there was PeopleSoft links for HR, for FS, for different areas. And customers would be calling the help desk saying, how do I get to PeopleSoft HR? So we set up a browser bookmarks that had those, and then we had groups for users that would be for HR and FS. And if they were in those, they would show up on their startup window or the startup pane. So if you hit start, you'd see PeopleSoft, or we had browser tools, and they would go there and select it. That way, when we migrated from one version of PeopleSoft to another, we just changed the URL in the browser bookmark. We didn't have to tell everybody, change all your browser bookmarks. It was just done. As long as they were trained to use that, it just works wonderful. I mean, it's fantastic. Dynamic local user, if you're not on an Active Directory, using dynamic local user is very helpful in being able to log into the product and having rights. Local file rights, we had one where we had to lock down a particular text file that had to be present but didn't want anybody to mess with, so we did a local file right, and nobody could touch it because it had some critical information on connecting to databases. File management, also being able to have some file management, some printer management, even iPrint. So being able to set up your printers, and again, utilizing those AD or eDirectory groups, using those ZENworks groups, and being able to maximize productivity with minimal amount of management, right? Remote management, being able to remote control others is out there, and you know how to do it, what kind of ports, if you have separate ports, if you know, and we'll cover some of those, and we'll see some of that today. Roaming profiles, SNMP, Windows group. So Windows group policies. You're not on AD, you're on eDirectory, but you would like to manage using some of those Windows group policies that are inherent into the Windows 10. you can set them up with a ZENworks Windows group policy. All right, so you can take that, if you have, for instance, a kiosk, you can take that recycle bin off the desktop, right? So be aware that that's there. And then the ZENworks Explorer policy, which we talked about earlier. Good one to start with. We also have endpoint security management policies. So again, the first list here is ZCM inherent. You have it if you have ZCM. The second list is through the suite or add-on purchase. It's application control. You want to make sure people don't click on that. We had a it was years ago, but we had a particular virus that was out there as an executable, and we wanted to make sure people wouldn't touch that or execute it. So we made an application control policy to exclude running that application. Right? That's just an example of what you can do. Communication hardware. How does your hardware communicate, and how do you control that? Data encryption for USB sticks. Actually, yeah, USB sticks or files in the in your file system. Being able to set those rights or that encryption. Firewall, location assignment. If you're here, what do you have? If you're in another location, what do you have? And that kind of goes with today's day and age of people working at home, right? Location assignment is really good to have. Microsoft data encryption with BitLocker, scripting, being able to send out some scripts, security settings, USB connectivity, VPN, and Wi-Fi. So there's a whole group without explaining them all. And then we have, of course, the disk encryption policy, which is full disk encryption. Okay, your devices go off-site. You want to make sure that you have that protected. You can enable full disk encryption so that they're encrypted on that laptop or device. For configuration management policies, we went over this. What are the differences? Well, it's part of ZCM. They use the operating system drivers, and we'll get into more detailed control. It's detailed control on whatever policy you happen to pick. Endpoint security management policy and disk encryption policies. It's part of the ZCM suite or add-on. It has additional drivers in it. It also utilizes locations if you want it to. And again, some additional detail control. Okay, so it's it gets very detailed, and we'll look at some of those today. Any questions on the policies? And we'll be covering some of them in just a minute. So hopefully we're going to answer some of the questions that we had at the beginning. How do we achieve our goal? Have a test zone. If anything, throw up an appliance. Just play with it. Your license should work, and you can have a separate zone that just you work on those to make sure you can understand what's going on. Identify the experience deploying in your test environments. That way you have a benchmark, you have timing, you have rights. This may be difficult because you may not have the network or the DNS or the DHCP or all the configuration setups. At minimum, at least throw up an appliance. And have one workstation that you're working the policy on, so you can see what happens. You can always subscribe and share between test and production zones. So if you created something in that test environment, you can pump it over to the production zone. And you can also set the device into test mode. It's in the production zone. So review documentation, README TIDs, verify system requirements. Again, this is for people watching the recordings. If you want to know some of the steps that we'd look through in order to make a successful policy, follow some of these and definitely go through the documentation. Set the device or user in test mode. This will allow you to, if you have a particular policy that is in production and you want to tweak it a little bit, you can go ahead and, while it's in sandbox, you can deploy it to those device or users in test mode. Okay? And that particular test mode we'll see when we go to ZCC. All right? So that way you can actually keep tweaking that until you have it golden, and then you can deploy it out once you publish it. Apply to production. Primaries one at a time. applied it. Yeah, this is, whoops, I didn't take this off. This was from last time. This was on the system update. The last part there. Sorry about that. What is required? Make sure you're following corporate policy. You may have a security administrator. You may have a corporate policy that says that you can or can't do certain things. Make sure you have that approval as well. Again, having a test environment, you're removed from that, so you can actually see what's going on and then make it honed for your corporate policy if you need to. Policy configuration is Zen policy, other policies, like remember all the policies that may affect that device. There's ZENworks policies. There's other policies like GPOs and firewalls set on the device, also set on the network. ZENworks registry settings. Okay, so be aware that your policy configurations throughout the enterprise in different areas. And this is where it all falls back onto that corporate documentation, right? You have a documentation manual that says we're using policies for these reasons, security approved, and this is the policies that fall under. And do use the admin notes in the policies, right? Dependencies completed to all zone components. So the dependencies would be if the ZENworks agent can handle that policy. If it's too old of an agent, it may not recognize what that policy does. Okay, so making sure the agents are at the proper level, and then the device will support the policy. It's the right OS. It has the right dependencies of .NET or bootlocker or whatever, right? So make sure that the dependencies are in tow. Allowed, again, what takes precedence? User, device, do you have overrides, do you have ignores? Okay, and that's part of the wizard. Time sensitive, immediate, before login. Maybe you want to do it before login or after login. We now can patch when somebody says log out or shut down. Our patching will now patch and prompt and say, you're shutting down. We will apply these Microsoft patches or these vendor patches. So before it actually powers down. So we're able to do that now. Be aware of that in update 1. So before login, a particular location, certain device or user, time of day. Do you have a termination policy on the bundle? Because you have maintenance Saturday night at 2 o'clock every Saturday. Do you need to terminate that particular app so nobody's in it while you're doing your maintenance? All right. So be aware of those things. And final results achieved. Was your goal achieved? All steps completed. Follow-up needed. And then company documentation updated. All right. You may have... your goal may have been achieved to create the policy and it's going out to a particular group of people, but you haven't deployed the agent all the way. So maybe not all the steps are completed or a follow-up is needed. So that's why those questions are there, right? If you run into some sort of issue where you couldn't do it to everybody, but at least you're set to go, we just have some other things to follow up on. And then troubleshooting. Primary server logs. Are there satellites involved? Okay, because there's replication to satellites and primary servers. Of course, the ZA device logging set to debug. And part of that is in the ZMD messages log. Some other tools might be, when you talk to us, we'll be looking for a Zen info. Or a tool might be GP result, right? Understanding, having the user run GP result right when they're having the issue, so we can actually see what group policies are in place. Is it a mix of GPOs from AD and Zen? Is it a mixture of, you don't have AD, it's ZENworks doesn't seem to be enforcing them? So know that some of those troubleshooting tools and files are there. And that's what those are for. Any questions? I know that was a long talk about policies. Policies is huge, but it's so valuable to leverage those for your users. I know we really utilize them well in my previous employer, so they're very effective. We're going to the lab. Let's go ahead and go there. We will here and we will go here. So we have our Windows 10 device here. All right. That one time we created the Notepad++, right? So we have that here. We have our Windows 10. We have our Zap window. One of the first things we wanted to mention was going to, let me get over to my CCC. Is going to, oh, yeah, it timed out. I expected that. ZENworks Explorer Config. One of the policies, let's start from scratch. For those that haven't done a lot of these policies, let's just start from scratch. We'll go to the testing area and we'll go and create a new folder, call this ZENcast. Jose, device associations versus user associations for policies. Yeah, I think we'll cover some of that. It's really effective in what we'll see in the GPO policy. But you're absolutely right. We're going to cover that in some of our details here. So thank you for asking. Don't let me forget about that. We're going to start off with some basic setup for policies, and then we'll get into the policies themselves. This one was an all policy. Yeah, as Jose mentions in chat, we mostly recommend device. What is your take on this in general? And you know, it depends. If you're heavy on user and your devices are basically just imaged. We had a trading room where we just imaged the devices and we really didn't care about the devices because the users coming down would need to have their icons and their policies to make it look like they're at their desk, right? So we created a training room that we didn't have any really device policies, but we had some user policies. So when they came down to that training room, but as a major environment, from what I've seen and what I've actually done, there's more. I can't recommend it, but it's mostly been device policies. Okay. Not to mention that, the GPO policies have users and machine. So let's not forget about that. But I've seen mostly, and in most of the environments I've noticed, and in ours at the city, we're also pretty much device policies. But we did have user policies. They come in handy. They come in useful. And for our training room, it worked perfect, right? Because, well, it worked great because we were able to give them a simulation of their desktop with their policies and their applications that they used. So moving to Zen, thank you for asking that, Jose. Thanks for the chat. ZENworks user and end user brand policy. Oh, that's the branding. We don't want well, we can do the branding. Let's do that. Uh-oh. That's not good. There we go. So we're going to do branding. Excuse me. Sorry about that. So we have branding, and we can change different things in the branding itself. All right. So if we wanted a different color, and it will show us what those colors are, we can make it really ugly. Right. But we can change these. We can change the title image, this ZENworks image right here. We can change the title icon here. So Jose's saying that makes sense. I guess we recommend that user associations should follow identities. Yeah, right. So that's the best way to put it. Thanks, Jose. Good interaction there. I appreciate the questions. So this will change to the actual theme color that you have as you move this bar up and down. Okay. There's button colors here. There are displays. All right. And then primary font colors. We make it black. We go down here. Okay. You can customize the background in the image. So those things we can just say, all right, we're going to do that. We're going to make it small. We're going to make it green on top. You understand about bringing in the icon and the different images and so forth. We'll go, so you can put your logo in here. All right. And then we're going to create it as a sandbox, but we're going to define additional properties because we don't want to send it out just yet. We're going to hit finish. All right. So what are some of the requirements? Maybe we have requirements behind them. Remember, these filters are here. They're very extensive. All right. Service running, service processor family. This particular one is more of a display type. So maybe I haven't seen too many filters on a branding policy, but there could be. And the relationship. Oh, we need to apply this. No, I didn't make any changes in here. I have to delete this. Okay, we'll hit apply. Go to relationships. We're going to add our device in. And now we come across user precedence, and this might help Jose. User associated policy overrides device associated policy. So for instance, if we had a device associated policy that said remove the recycle bin, and it was a GPO policy, let's say, but this was a GPO policy that says we have to have that recycle bin there, okay, for them to dispose of things, then you can override that, right? So they basically are in layers. So realize that one will supersede the other, basically overrides the other. Same way with device precedence. We're on a kiosk. I don't care who logs in. The user may have recycle bin, must be there, but if he's logging into this kiosk, he will not get a recycle bin because that's not allowed, right? So you can override the device precedence. And then maybe just have the device only. Anything that involves a user in the registry or in the GPO for a machine, for the user, it will be ignored. It'll just be device only or user only. Okay? So you can actually trump a previous setting. Generically, you're going to have recycle bin on everybody, but on the kiosk, we're not going to have it. So you're going to have a policy out there that'll trump that. Okay, that's just a small example. And then finally, it's going to say, okay, we're going to create this policy for you. Do you want to enforce the policies immediately on all assigned devices? We've already assigned the device, and we're going to enforce immediately on all assigned devices. So we're going to select that and say yes. And one thing to remember, if you're uncertain, be sure to go up and do the current page help. Very informative. And then sometimes it'll have links to other areas to actually dig deeper. So be aware that that's there. Make sure you utilize all the documentation you can find, even in the ZCC. Okay. If we look back over here, it should automatically kick off a refresh in the background because we said enforce immediately. Let's go ahead and close. No, that's for Notepad++. Then if we open this back up, let's refresh, see if we can kick it off faster. So this is our branding policy. Didn't take. Don't know why yet. Let's give it a minute. Let's move on to another policy and see if they start coming in. I've been having some interesting anomalies happen on this particular device, and if I reboot this device right now, it'll blue screen to death on me. And I've installed it a few times, so I'm not sure why that's occurring. All right. And, oh, what did I say? We have to have this in test mode. My bad. Set. So I went to the device. I set test mode. Let's go see what we got here. Seeing if it'll go immediately within a minute or so. Let's double check. See if it's associated. It should be. So we have our device assignments. And we have our branding right here. Still unknown. Shows here. So I think, yeah, there it is. I hit refresh and notice this went real small. Okay. I think I hit refresh on that, but it should automatically do that. Now that it's in test mode, so let's go back over to that branding policy. And please thank you, Pascal, for that, making sure it's associated to the device. I like the interaction. I appreciate that interaction. This is our lab. Let's get what you're looking at after it. Things that we don't want to miss anything. So let's go to details again. And we think that that's way too small, so we're gonna make it large. We're going to, the color's really obnoxious and it's hurting me. So we're gonna go blue, and then this is the buttons color. We're gonna go, and the buttons colors are these over here. All right. So we're gonna go more white. Yeah, white. That's good right there. And then we're going to, the font color, we're going to make white because we have the darker background. Let's hit apply. Have not published yet, right? And let's wait and see if it automatically, oh, we didn't enforce it immediately, so we'd have to refresh. And we should see it change. So we can have your brand up here. We can do whatever icon you wish, those types of things. Make sense? All right, let's move on. Let's go on over to, I think this one's was requested for years and years and years and came in, and it's so good that they put it in. I don't remember if it was 11.4 or 2017. I think it was 11. I don't remember. But so glad that they brought that in because of being able to brand it with your brand. You can put your brand in there. All right. Once it's golden, you can go ahead and publish and be done with it. We'll go ahead and do that. So we'll hit publish and finish. Okay. So that's set. Now let's go over to policies. Oh, we're going on our testing area, ZENcast. We got our branding. Let's go ahead and let's go to another policy, Windows policy. And we're going to go to configuration policies. How many of you out there, if you're on, tell me if you have ZESM or not, because that's a whole nother area of policies. And I'll stick with configuration policies for now because we can easily chew up time with that. But if there are endpoint security policies, we'll cover a few of them, but they won't be actually probably made. So we have local rights policy. Oh, we'll just go down the list. Actually, we want to go to the ZENworks Explorer configuration because that gives us settings. Let's say for techs, okay? Or for users or for whoever, right? So again, remember the help is up here. If you're not certain about what these items are, this one actually takes you to the documentation. Or did I select the wrong one? Sorry, I selected the wrong one. Okay, great, Pascal. ZESM 2. Are there any particular, those that are using ZESM, are there any particular ones that you're using while I'm going through some ZCM ones? Allow end user to pin bundles. What does that mean? You can actually set pin to start or taskbar. Okay, that's what that's for. I need to get my mouse over here. Let me do this so I can go between these two a little bit easier. Yeah. Let's do this. Okay, so that's pinning right there. All right. And you could say unconfigured, which means whatever is set will remain. You can specifically say no, or you could specifically say yes. So they can be overridden. Remember, you can have a policy in one folder, and then for a particular user, you can have another policy of the same type that can override. Okay, so that's why unconfigured is there. Whatever closest to the device or closest to the object wins. All right, and what I mean by that is if we go to devices, if I have a policy under workstations and I have a policy under test or support, well, a work group, if I under support will win because it's closest unless it's overridden, right? Or if it's unconfigured. That's where the unconfigured comes in. Let me go back. I stopped that one, didn't I? Testing area, ZENcast. Sorry about that. Windows. So these two are kind of what we'll set up first, and then if you're using ZESM, you'll do a location policy, right? Because you're going to start using locations. And this is Explorer. Next. Okay, let's go ahead and hit, I was going to create real quick. Show the all folder in the ZENworks Explorer. Here's your all. So you'll see everything in one group, and then you can also go down to folders. All right, that's what that one's all about. Show folder structure in the ZENworks Explorer, which is this side. So the navigation of that. Enables users to manage favorites. So you have managed favorites. So Pascal's using Wi-Fi and network locations, of course. Yeah. So that way you can manage those devices that are away. Zap window, enable folder view, expand the entire folder tree, display as default folder. You can select there. There's different selections there. ZENworks Explorer, display application in Windows Explorer. Okay, so under Windows, that's one thing that I did. You have ZENworks, you can put ZENworks down below. Okay, so we're going to go yes to that. Name of root folder, we're going to call it ZENworks. Hide ZENworks system tray. That's your system tray down here, right? We don't want to do that in this case. But if you had a kiosk, it would be very handy. Show default notifications when you have notifications coming in, or location changes, those types of things. Pascal's probably familiar with that. ZENworks tray icon. Show the technician application. You don't want the users to get into this and be able to launch this. One less thing for them to get involved with. Enable manual refresh. You can set these. Okay, log out, log in as new user, view progress, show location change. So we'll just go ahead and hit yes, and we're going to define additional because we want to assign it. So this is our our policy. So Jose saying ZENworks Explorer policy is almost automatic for us. And you know, oh, it is. It's, oh, good. Sorry, in my chat, I have, in my window, I forgot I put the chat going, so I don't have to read them off all the time. But yeah, thank you for the interaction. ZENworks Explorer policy is almost automatic for us on our implementation. So we agree that this policy almost always gets created. Agreed. This is just like, let's just do this, and it's set, fire or forget. You can modify as you go, which is, it's just a really no-nonsense application or policy. So we'll go ahead and do support. This guy, we're going to hit next. We're going to go ahead and say, just use the default because we don't have any differences, but we're going to enforce automatically. And test this. I think, I don't know, I don't remember everything I said in that. There was just a few things set. Oh, yes, so Windows Explorer, hoping that comes in here. There we go. Oh, no, that's ZENworks Agent. That's it. And there's your folders. So they can get to their apps here. All right. So yeah, this is one that I think every zone should have, at least if anything, a global one, so that you can control some of those details. So great comment, Jose. Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and publish this and finish. Again, if you didn't want them pinning, one thing about pinning is if you say pin this to taskbar, okay. Oh, we got a pin failed. It didn't take the icon, but it's here. The way to clear that would be cleaning up user settings, because it goes to your profile. And then pinning should go away. Looks like I got an error though. We went into logging. We didn't have it in debug, but if we can sidetrack here for a second. I don't have my bar tail on here, but we should be able to grab this. Doesn't see that policy. So let's do Explorer. Maybe it's taking it by name. Oh, I'm at the bottom, aren't I? Hang on. Don't remember where I dropped my... I'm not sure that's the right aim. No, it's not finding it. I need it in debug in order to look at that. Okay. But we did get an error on this guy, so it's not in the, it did pin, but for some reason, let's pin it to the desktop or start menu. No, it's going to fail. And it might be because I haven't rebooted this device to get the policies in like it should. I'll get a blue screen of death, so we'll continue on. But what you'd do is basically you'd want to go ahead and set this to debug, apply, and then as you see those errors come up, they should be recorded in the ZMD messages log. Clear the log if you need to, and then we can go ahead and try and pin to start. Let's see if we can view it here now. See, there's not much in it now. Folder handler. So start menu, folder. I would have to look into this further. I have rarely seen them not do it. They seem to be fairly reliable when they're pinning. At one point, this wasn't an experimental stage, and I am using U1 FCS, not the U1 complete. So I don't know if that has something to play. But that's how I'd start troubleshooting. Is clear the log, set a debug, simulate the issue again, and then start digging into the log. And you should have either GUID or name in there so you can see what's going on with that particular action. All right, let's go to another policy. I hope we don't have a lot of policies failing on us like that. Let's see. Let's go back to ZCC. And of course, if we wanted to say don't pin, let's go no for the all and pinning, no to pin. Let's go apply, go publish, finish, refresh. This all should go away. Didn't go away. So I got associated to the user. Hang on. Should be to the device. So this is the guy here. That's this guy here. If we go to agent, you can see it's this guy here, the C8DB. So I think we're okay there. And pinning, do we have pinning? Yeah, so far. It hasn't taken yet. Let's see if it will. Demo gone bad. Okay. Clean up user. Oh, did you mean the user settings from here? Yeah, this is associated. That should clean up the user settings in the cache. If that's what you're referring to. Okay. Moving on. We got a lot of bundles or a lot of policies to talk about. So let's talk about a few more. Policy, Windows, configuration management, dynamic local user, not using AD, or you want to have an auto login. You can do that. DLU. Some of the things you can set are not a member of or making them a member of. It'll create a user credential on the fly. This is good for installing applications on non-AD and when you need rights. You can also raise rights. So you can also identify a particular credential here, set the password not to expire. You can make it volatile so it goes away after so long. So be aware. Oh, no worries, Jose. This is a great conversation. I appreciate it. So you can do these different things for a user. You're creating a user on the fly. Mostly used when you don't have Active Directory. Otherwise, you're having Active Directory. And I get the question quite often, GPOs and Active Directory, GPOs and Zen. If you have AD, let it use it for what it's used for so you don't have conflict, right? You want to manage the least amount of policies. However, if there's different sections of policies, like you have AD administrators and then you have policy creators, you can give them creation in here to do GPO policies through Zen that'll tie into it with certain credentials to just be able to make policies. It's one way to do it. Or just have AD do what it does best with policies. Use one or the other so you're not having conflicts. is my recommendation. Okay, and then we'll do, you have excluded workstations. Here's your files for file rights. You can select particular files and folders, what type of permissions they have. All right. I'm going to go over to the DLU policy that I've already created, because that way we don't have to keep creating them. Sorry, not dynamic local use, GPO policy. Where's my group? ZENworks. Where's my group? Why am I not seeing? Where are we? Policies. Local group. Sorry. I don't see a local group. Let's go here. Group policy. So in this details, when you create this, you have to create it on an operating system that you're going to deploy it on. So for instance, if I'm working on Windows, if I still have Windows 7, I don't want to use a Windows 7 GPO policy on a 10. It won't work. All right, it has its internal checks. So create the group policy on the device that you're using. So in this case, we would want to go out here and log into, I don't know that I have it up. Oh, I do. Okay. Log in here, administrator. Let's go to testing, ZENcast, new policy, Windows. Windows group policy. I just wasn't seeing it in that other list. Windows GPO. I'll put Zen Win GPO. All right, so I have to configure something here. If I go ahead and do a local group policy, I can configure right here. What it's going to do is the ZCC helper has to be installed. I've already installed it. And once it comes up, we'll need to, it'll open up this particular's registry. Oh, maybe I didn't install it. Maybe I reverted. Let me run this. So this is a ZCC helper. It actually runs tools in the background depending on which policy that you're using. So let's go ahead and launch that. We're going to go ahead and wait a minute. Say yes. So it's going to actually open up a GP editor, right, on this particular box so that it could see what type of OS it is and the features that it has for this particular OS. So we're going to hit configure again. Yes. Go bigger if I can. All right. We'll cancel this. So it's ZENworks is, we'll configure a group policy. Hang on. Sorry, frog in my throat. So it's opening up the editor. So be patient. Let it do its thing. We're going to upload when we're done. So for instance, we can go in here and we can either use user configuration or computer configuration. If you've done Windows GPOs at all, this looks completely familiar to you. All right. So if we did administrator templates and we go to the desktop and we say we want to remove recycle bin, we're going to say enabled. Okay. They give you details here. All right. And we're done with that. We can hit close and we can hit upload. Oh, did I do something wrong? Oh, there we go. Oh, there it is. It's imported. Okay. And then upload. So you got to be patient, not too quick on the keys. What it did is it uploaded. Once you created that, it closed the editor down, took those changes, and put it to where ZCM can get to it. Oh, that's interesting. Let's open it back up real quick. Yes. This one is powerful, but also the more detailed you get, the more dangerous it can get. And if you've done GPOs, you know what I mean there. But it's highly effective, and not having AD even, it really helps for those that don't have AD. So we're waiting. We're going to double check this here. We're going to go to desktop. We're going to remove recycle bin from there. We're going to hit enabled, hit OK. We'll hit apply and OK. Then we're going to close because I closed this other window. See, local group policy settings are being imported. Have been successfully imported. I just got too quick on the fingers there. Upload. Now it's uploading it. All right. Now we could go configure computer configuration or user configuration or both. We're going to do user because remember that was under the user. Now that's all we have for this particular one, right? So we're going to hit next. It tells you a little bit about it. We're going to define additional properties. We're going to try and push it to the desktop too. Okay. Enforcement. Force a relog. I don't want to relog. I don't want to have to reboot. Oh, you know, the GPO will automatically want me to reboot. So I'm not going to push this one to this particular device, else I'll get a blue screen and we'll be done. So we're going to go ahead and publish this. Finish. But I do want to show you under the requirements, we didn't do anything with the requirements and it automatically put this in. Okay, so we cannot push this to a Windows 7 box or a 32-bit Win 10 or those types of things. All right. So be aware that the GPOs are specific to that they're very specific to the type of device that you actually created it on. All right. Bookmarks. Oh my goodness. Let's go to bookmarks. Anybody out there using bookmarks, URLs? Oh my goodness. We use them like crazy. So I created a quick bookmarks out here. So you can create folders and titles and so forth and links. So the issue here was, I think I mentioned it earlier in the stream, as your customer takes their laptop and they have all the URLs that they need for inside. For us, it was PeopleSoft. They'd go out to PeopleSoft, HR, FS, whatever they needed to do was assigned to them through a group. And when they took it offsite, because we had ZESM and locations, they would not be there because they wouldn't have access to it. So we had to give them some other, once VPN was noted, then it would come up and it would go ahead and display those. So this is a great way of basically having a URL available to your users. And if it should change for any reason because of maintenance, because you got a new program and you're no longer using that one, you've migrated over, or if it's archive stuff, this is just a great one. If you haven't used this, I think this is a great way to get your users their list of work URLs. Make sense? Okay, so if we look at policies, we're gonna jump real quick here because we have a lot of different policies. Power management policies, power up and down. Printer policy, great if you have iPrint. Remote management policy, again, another one that should always be in place per the zone. Default management policy, remote management policy. This one is just, I think, another no-brainer that should go into the zone. Whether or not you can allow a request, all of these settings here, request a remote session. So in your technician application, they can request a remote. Okay, if they know how to do that, you can allow the user to request a remote from there. Typically it's off, but that's what that one's for. Terminate a remote session when permissions required. Display remote properties in the ZENworks icon. Display remote session audit information to the user. So it really works quite well. Been around for a very long time. Any news about extending bookmark features for most popular browsers? You know, Jose, I'm gonna basically give a default answer there. Whatever the documentation says for browsers, supported browsers, I would say is what those are for. But if there are some issues with particular browsers, you'll find that in the system requirements. But I really think that's a really good question. I didn't really bookmark features for most popular. So, I see what you're saying. So having in the policy itself some bookmark features. That's a great ideas. Put that out on the ideas. I don't know how much that would be, but yeah, that would be really ideal to have a Chrome. If you're using Chrome, use these particular features. They're automatically set on everybody's workstation or using that browser. That's a great idea. Thanks for that note. I'll post that note. Popular browsers. And if you can put that in the ideas portal, send me a link, and I'll go ahead and start voting too. That's a great idea if it's not already there. Again, how to manage devices controlled. If you've been in ZENworks long enough, you know about remote control, I hope. And you should be able to use these without too much of an issue. So there's a bunch of different, because your remote is not just remote management. There's remote view. There's remote control. There's remote view. I'm looking right here. There is remote diagnostics and remote execute. All of these I've used, and they come in handy. Like remote execute, you can't get to a box and you need to get that execution going. It works really well. Remote file transfer. And these are results of the security settings. Okay, enable password-based authentication, session securities, and so forth. Another must-have, and I agree with Jose that this is a must-have as a default policy. Okay, so you have all of these. Should be great. Let's go back over to, again, your printers. We talked a little bit, we mentioned printers just a second ago, but new policy, Windows. And we're really touching on Windows today with configuration management and ESM. Roaming profiles, another one. If you're doing roaming profiles, of course, be careful, right? Because it can pile up. You can have a lot of different profiles in there, and then it's trying to pump them around, depending on how big your profile is. So you do have to weigh the other environmental factors in that. SNMP service, if you're having that on your particular workstation. Windows Group, we did a little bit about that. And ZENworks Explorer. We're going to go back now. We're going to look at some of the other ones that you may or may not have if you don't have the suite or you don't have the add-on for Endpoint. Full disk is just full disk. And it talks about, I actually have one here. Disk encryption. Details. So what the block sizes are, the encryption settings, the recovery information. So you can actually have a recovery password generated for the zone, for all the encrypted devices. You have disk reboot control. Okay, how are you going to reboot? The pre-boot authentication if you're doing PBA. And that PBA reboot. And DMI settings. So you can actually inject those in. So there's a lot of details in here. They've done a great job with the disk encryption. There's also data encryption. What is that, you ask? That is for files. Enable encryption for removable storage. USB. Devices you can exclude. So you can actually import a file of USB. So if you have technicians that you basically assign them a toolkit and it's on a USB, let's say a 64 gig to USB for some reason they would need that. So when they plug it in, they can use those tools. You can allow or disallow those devices on the network or plugged into the device. So if somebody brings one from home, you can exclude it. It's not approved. You can't run anything on that USB. But you can also encrypt in there. So that's the data encryption side of that. So it's data encryption, and then there's disk encryption. Okay, remote control, disk encryption. We have the DLU. I think we went through the DLU a little bit, but we want to go through some more like Wi-Fi and stuff. Yeah, we went through this one. And if we go through, let's go types, device control. Do I have one? Yeah. Things like device control policy. In all of these different, here's some different settings you can have for apps, network, iTunes, iCloud, keyboard gaming, for Apple, Android, Active Sync. I don't remember if I did anything in this. Default settings created via script. So I created this one via script. I don't think I had much settings in here. Let's scan real quick. Classroom app, find my files. I think I just wanted to present this one. I didn't have anything particular. Okay. So you can actually have a bunch of mobile device control settings and active sync settings for device control. Let's see what else we have. Oh yeah, we have a few settings. So this is on the mobile side. So device control, policy, email policy. Again, this one was created via the script. Period to sync email, how often, what are the different devices, addresses to be synced, mail drop, so forth. So all of these under the mobile, policies mobiles, are all mobile. And what we did at my previous employers, we had a similar setup like this, where we had enterprise, we had global, and then we have departments. So like here. And we did that both for bundles and policies, and then we can assign the department bundles to the folder. So that way they always had those if they were in that department. Let's move on to see what, let's go here. Policies. No, I didn't want that. I wanted this. Okay. Here's a printer policy. You can manage your printers here. Of course, you can have relationships with workstation groups or user groups. These are SMBs. You can also add in drivers. And then you have iPrint client down here. You can actually install the iPrint client as well. You give it a location, install. Okay. Integrating with some of the other products that we have. See what other policies we have already created. So I hope this gives you a little more roundabout view of policies. Again, we didn't cover near anything close to what there is out there, but I do hope that you explore these in a test environment and then dig into them, because they're quite valuable. Your default location policy is used when you have ZESM and you want to find out your locations. Again, we talked a little bit about that, where the location ZESM uses additional set of drivers and will use a location variables for network environments, and those are found in here under locations, under configuration locations. You have your locations. Then you have your network environments. Very effective. You can attach devices to those locations, or objects, I should say, so that they always get those particular icons. If you have an app that's pulled right off of a server, you're running it off of a server. If you're inside, outside, you're using a URL. You can switch that depending on the location. Specific place to look for policy deployment logs on device. It's going to be the ZMD messages log. So thank you for asking. Let's look a little bit about that troubleshooting here. This one didn't give us much, did it? You go to technician application, and it makes sure it's in debug, because a lot of it's masked. It can be very verbose if it's in debug mode, but that's what you want. So you'll basically go to logging, and you'll view log or clear log. It's always the same location, or open log folder, which opens Explorer. There's your ZMD messages log. Now, do be aware, let me look something up real quick. That's a very good question on troubleshooting. Let's look here. ZENcast. I have a list of databases that are on devices. If you weren't aware, we hang on one sec. Front door was open. People were walking by. Sorry about that. So ZENworks logs, right? You also have Zeus logs, okay, for updates. Be aware that that's there. But there's also databases out here as well. And it basically is the device keeping track of what policy, what bundle did I have I deployed it, is it valid, what version is it, what was the last time I refreshed, all of those things. And those particular databases are built into the agent. And if we go to, let me see where those are. No, they're there. So ZENworks Home, we're at ZENworks Home, and this would be the same on Linux, right? And if we go to cache, it'll say, all right, you have to have permissions to get in there. You can't access. But if we do cache ZMD, we can get there, all right? These are the GUIDs that are being applied through different bundles, apps, and so forth. All right, refresh, so forth. But if you go into ZENcast, and it's in metadata, there's a couple of them in here. You can, and you open this up with a just a small database viewer, SQLite. You can open it up. You can see some of the transaction, and this is collected with the ZENinfo. So this is a really good. I don't have it on here. Do I have it to deploy? Hang on one sec. I might have SQLite to deploy. Bundles. And I would say it's under administration. Tech tools. Yes. Let me deploy this to this box and see if we can open one up. Let's go relationship. Add. Desktop. Oh, do this first. Support. This guy. Okay. Desktop. Next. Let's go back here. Not here. We are on this guy. Let's minimize this. Let's refresh. This is more of under the covers, but this is very effective. There are 4 databases. 2 which you saw, file and object, and then there's an MD status, and then Zeus has one as well. There's SQLite. Let's go ahead and install. There it is. We're going to open. And we're going to go to %. If I didn't fat finger it. And we go to cache. Obviously it won't let us, right? So we will go to object info. So these are access times for different IDs. Let's see if I picked the right one. No. Let's pick the other one. Yeah. So you can see some content here. Let's go bigger. In your file sources, with GUIDs. Okay, of course you have your IDs here. So there's checksums that it has to verify. Let's open a different one. We're going to open up work, MD status. This one is probably the most important to you. Here's your status. Bundle, 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 policy, branding, Zen Explore config. So these are policies. Here's your timestamps. Object GUID. It's a bundle distribution. Was it success? Was it failure? So we can see here we had a failure. right. This one is really, and this is all collected with the Zen info. In one of these ZENcasts, we're going to go through the Zen info so you can see everything that's collected. But this tells you, last time through these tables, last time it was refreshed. Well, it never refreshed, so it never got the update. Or what version is it, right? Here's the versions. Okay, valuable information in here. If you're troubleshooting, trying to figure out what object is doing what, it's failing on a particular bundle, you can go in here and find that particular bundle. And then you could do a zman command to find the name of this particular GUID. So you can see that. So it's all interchangeable, but everything's by GUID, right? So it's easier to remember a name than a number. So unfortunately, everything's by GUID, so you'd have to convert it to the name. Okay, and then there's one more, which is under Zeus. I want to say cache. Is it cache? Yeah, cache database. Okay, because that's a newer type version database. So I knew the database was there, but it's not compatible with SQLite 3. Okay, Pascal, thanks. Okay, so logs on device, to answer your question, is ZMD messages. Thank you. And as well as you can look in this database on the local device for troubleshooting. Okay. Make sure it's in debug mode when you're setting them off. If we go now and view log, we should be able to. Oh, I have Notepad++. What am I doing this for? Hang on a second. Let's go to Notepad++. We're getting close to our session end. Let's open. Program files. ZMD messages. Do I have my language on here? No, I don't. Bummer. All right. So we should be able to see which GUID was that. Let me grab my GUID. Go over to the bundle. We'll go to administrators, tech tools, SQLite. If this one was having an issue, one of the first things I'd do is search on this in the ZMD messages. And then search on this on the loader messages on the other side. And you can see if it's coming across or not. Find next. And there it is, it starts. Signed objects. I know this gets convoluted and there's a lot of stuff in here, but there are threads in here, like thread 59. What is it doing? It's connecting, it's getting good status. It's actually doing the install here, bringing it down. That's some of that on 59. But there's threads in here, and then I search on the GUID itself, and sometimes the name. You'll see the name in here once in a while. Okay, I hope that's helpful as far as searching for that. Also, I will put in the comments, once this recording is published, I'll put in the comments my language for Notepad++ to make this come to light, like I showed, I think, last week or the week before, where it'll show you errors or counts or those types of things. I'll have a link to my filer on the recording in the comments or description below after this recording is set. So thank you for asking those questions. I know we only hit the tip of the iceberg for policies. I mean, a couple of the main ones we covered, making sure that you get those in, that's important. But there are just so many policies out there. But you could probably find one that suits your needs. And just be aware that they're out there. As you get into ZESM, you have more drivers to be able to do Wi-Fi, VPN, storage device control policies. Okay? Maybe you don't want your USB ports even active. Turn them off. You can do that. All right? Your scripting policy. Okay. So be aware that those are there. This is just a touch of the base. Where to look for would be ZMD messages. Again, I'll post my language to my Notepad++, which should be helpful for you guys out in the field. You can tweak it, do whatever you want with it. Just import it into Notepad++ under languages. Any other questions before I close out policies? I knew we wouldn't be able to touch on everything. I hope we touched on some essential things and some ideas through the slide presentation and through our demonstration so that you can look at new things in your zone and make it a little more effective. So I hope that it's been valuable to you. If you like this particular one, please come back and mark it as liked. Make sure you subscribe so you get notifications. But I just wanted to make sure we're good here. I don't have too much more as far as in the lab itself. Yeah, as Jose says, application prevention is helpful, like disallowing certain EXEs. As I mentioned in my presentation, there was an EXE that was a virus that was very common. This is way back. We're going 10 years, 12 years back, that we didn't want anybody bringing in. So we put that in our application prevention policy. So correct. Just let's protect them from themselves as well as giving them the best way to be productive in their environment and being able to do their job. So that's what we do as admins, right? So next week in lab, thank you for all the conversation. I'm glad my chat's working now. I'm glad it's there so everybody else can see what's going on in chat, even if they're not joined in the chat. Next week, or actually, we're talking 3 weeks, right? Because this is the second week. We have another Tuesday. So in July, we're going to do a little bit of bundle creations again, because we're going to try and keep that tie-in, try and keep policies and bundles, the main things in, but we're going to actually take them to the next level. We're going to do user self-provisioning. If you own ZCM at all, any ZENworks products, any ZENworks configuration management product, you own Service Desk for free, and you can have your users go to a URL, put the URL in a URL policy, and have them go there to be able to get what applications they need. So we'll display that next week or next time on our ZENcast, and then in July, thank you, Pascal. In July, we'll do some zone design, sizing, and maintenance. We've had a lot of questions about that. And I'm going to try and get some mobile management and DMZ in there. Okay? And most of all, keep your distance, stay safe, and be kind to one another. I'm so glad you were able to come and take some time with me and converse with me. This has been a great ZENcast. I appreciate all your support and help through this. Thank you much, and have a great couple of weeks. Cheers to all.